Hi everyone, welcome to another Memgraph community call. I hope we are live now. It seems that we are, and I see people are starting to join. Yeah, let's first do a little intro. I'm Katarina, head of developer experience at Memgraph, and today I have Toni Lastre, head of platform engineering at Memgraph, with me.
Hello.
Uh, Hi. First of all, maybe you have been a part of Memgraph community call before. Maybe you have been here on Tuesday. We had a community call on a topic of Microsoft Graph Rag with Memgraph by Jacob Coles from Redfield. It was really nice. So in case you missed it, you can watch the recording. But today we have a bit of different community call because usually we do it with our customers or community members and we highlight their success stories. But sometimes we also do this kind of Memgraph ones where we have our team members talk about our features or in this case Memgraph Lab. Most recently we had a release of Memgraph 3.0. Maybe you read about it, maybe you haven't, but most important things about it is that vector search is now production ready, high availability is production ready, and we also have some improvements for the support for dynamic algorithms. But definitely make sure to run the Docker pull command and try it out and let us know what you think. But besides having Memgraph as a database, Memgraph Lab has always been an important part of that puzzle, I would say, and a lot of our users use Memgraph Lab to communicate with the database. And Memgraph Lab, besides just connecting to a database and querying database, has its own set of unique features. And Toni, with his team, released the Lab 3.0, which has a lot of new exciting features. And today he's going to share more about that as well as the future of Memgraph Lab. Before Toni can start, maybe a small note from me. I see you already discovered where the chat is, so continue chatting there. If you have a question, there is a small icon on the right with a question mark. It's a Q&A section, so please ask questions there. It will be easier to highlight them when we respond to them. And we will take Q&A later, or if it's something related to stuff that Toni is currently showing, I will just jump in and ask a question. I think that's it. And Toni, you can share the screen, you can start. The floor is yours.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks.
Good start.
Yeah, wrong button, yeah. Thank you, Katarina, for the great introduction. And yeah, let's start off. I'm sure most of you already know that the Memgraph Lab 3.0, it has been released 3 weeks ago, and I hope you had a chance to download it, check it out, and see what's going on. And today, I just want to walk through some major features that we've added and pretty much show you the demo, how it all works in action, how you can use it for your everyday workflows and your interaction with Memgraph. And yeah, feel free to ask questions throughout the community call, and we will be happy to answer them. So let's get into it. Let's see what are the new features and how you can actually use them. To start off with one of the most asked feature in the community, I'm sure like every few days there was a new insight like, hey, can you add a feature where it will help our eyes and it will help how we interact with the lab, and that's actually the dark theme. So in 3.0, you can now switch your lab to the dark theme and work from that point on. So if you haven't already, go to the settings, you will have the theme there, and then just switch it to the dark theme if you wish. I'm not yet sure which one I like the most, light or dark, so I usually switch them throughout my usage, throughout my everyday usage. So I'm really happy to hear how do you use, like which theme do you use the most. So yeah, from now on, we'll just be in the dark theme throughout the presentation. The GraphChat, well, I'm sure on the last community call I think it was a month ago, 2 months ago, I showed you what the new GraphChat will be coming out in 3.0. And over here, you can actually see all the stuff that has been changed from the Lab 2.0 and 2.18, which is right now you have an easier way to change the models that you use in your GraphChat. You have the message threads, so you can pretty much group different messages and how you interact with the database. We added feedback there, so the feedback is not really working the same way how it works with the current LLM providers. For example, if you add thumbs down on the OpenAI interface, it's pretty much a feedback for their own model. And as we are not working with models per se, so you are using some other model from any other LLM provider, this thumbs down in the lab is actually removing that message from the actual context. What's the context? So right now you can actually reference the conversation that you are having with the GraphChat. So if you are asking about some nodes, you can reference, like, can you tell me more about that node? And the GraphChat will know because it's using the conversation history, fill it out to the LLM, and the LLM is able to figure out what that actually refers to. And with this thumbs down, you can actually remove conversations from that conversation history. So if you're not happy with the answer, if you think that it will actually mess up the actual response. We added a bunch of details, so it can help you really with debugging and all the things what's going on in the background. So you can now see all the different steps that the GraphChat has been using to generate a valid cipher, because the cipher can be invalid, even though if you set, the temperature for the LLM to be high or low, it can still create invalid cipher queries. So right now you will see all the steps and how it try to recover from each step. Also, you can see how big the conversation context was used, what kind of schema was used, because the schema actually helps a lot with generating the correct cipher query in the end. And I think on the last call, it wasn't planned, but one of you asked, like, if we can add how many tokens have been used, because it can be really helpful in debugging and seeing how big the actual prompt is. And we added that, so you can actually see in the details, you can see like the count of tokens that has been used to generate the answer. Along with the details, there are retries. So by default, the GraphChat will do a maximum of 3 retries. The retry is only done if cipher is invalid. It cannot really distinguish if the cipher returns no results. It cannot really yet distinguish if that's correct or not, or maybe the query is wrong or query is correct, but there aren't actually any data with that query in the database. A good thing is you can actually define and configure all these items. So you can define the maximum number of retries. You can define how big the conversation history should be, how many conversations should be used. And all of that is actually will be in the top right corner for the model configuration. And anytime you can also see the schema, you can see what's the current schema that the GraphChat is working on. We usually don't want to generate schema by our own because it can be an expensive operation. So we leave that to you to actually regenerate it if you need so. And previously in the previous versions of the lab, you could only have like a single chat. You even didn't have any threads, so a single chat and that's it. And we, especially when we were checking that out, it was really hard to see how different models can create different responses and what works, what isn't working, and so on. So we added that with the actual lab layouts, you can create two layouts, and then you can talk with one model in one layout, and another model in another layout, and see in parallel what's going on. So it can really pretty much make your life easier in debugging and seeing which model and what kind of questions should get you to the correct and final answer. This is the actual screen where you can define not just the model that should be used, but all the different configuration parameters. Some of the parameters are from the actual LLM provider, like the temperature, the maximum number of tokens, and so on. The other ones are pretty much used within the GraphChat, the conversation history, retry limit, and this is the place where we will add more and more configuration parameters to pretty much suit your business needs. So not just that, so what we did is, as we want to prepare the lab in a sense where we want to integrate the AI throughout the lab, not just the actual GraphChat, but having AI help you with any kind of workflow you have with Memgraph. It can be import, it can be a creation of query modules, it can be, I know, modeling the graph schema. So there are a lot of different uses where we can use the help of the AI to really pretty much make your life easier and faster. So we extracted the LLMs. So now in the settings, you actually can define all the different LLM connections, the actual provider, different models, and previously you were only limited with the 3 providers. For example, you can have OpenAI, Oyama, or Azure OpenAI, and that's it. Right now, you can have 10 different OpenAI connections if you have different business accounts and so on, and then use them wherever you see a need. Our plan is actually to have this settings page as a baseline where you define models, you define how the model actually works, what kind of API key it uses, and then you define where that model should be used in the lab. Right now, it's only GraphChat, but that's mostly a way for us to prepare for the future versions of the lab. I just spoiled you the last slide, but no worries. Okay, the next big thing that was released in Lab 3.0 was the shared graph style script. The GSS actually stands for the graph style script. That's our custom language similar to the CSS, where you could define how your graph should look like. So you can define the size of nodes, colors, images, and so on. And not just that, you have a way to define different functions. So you can say, like, I want to make my node as big as the number of outbound edges it has, and so on. So you can actually create some kind of logic that can help you out, like creating a visualization that can show you some kind of pieces, some kind of things that you matter the most. It can be the fraud detections, like make these nodes more reddish if the fraud detection is higher on some kind of a scale. So mostly everything that you do with the lab, that's saved in your browser. So everything you do is in your browser. And the problem that team members usually have is, if we have, for example, we have John and we have Alice, and they have their own browsers, and they are connecting to the same instance of the lab using same Memgraph database. So everything that John does is saved in his browser. Everything that Alice does is saved in her browser. And they don't have any collaboration except maybe sending style scripts, sending queries, sending collections through any other medium. So what we want to establish, we want to have a way for Alice and John to share things and actually collaborate easily on top of the same lab instance. And that's when we introduce the remote storage. So remote storage is a way for your lab to be able to save all those shared stuff somewhere. The somewhere is actually Memgraph database itself. This only works on the lab instance in Docker because the desktop application actually is only on your desktop. So the lab in Docker is something that more people can actually get access to. So through the environment variables, you can actually define where the lab should save all the shared items, actions, and so on. So there are actually two ways. For example, if you have Memgraph community, then your lab will use the whole single database instance for it. On the other hand, if you have enterprise Memgraph, then you have multi-tenancy and you can have different logical databases within the single instance. That helps a bit, especially from a point of authentication, authorization, and who has access to what. So good best practice there is actually to have one tenant, one isolated logic database that the lab uses to store all that shared information. And I will show you in the demo how it's all structured and how actually two different team members can share stuff and even keep some stuff for them for their own usage. So with the remote storage, our image actually can look like this. So we have a lab that's connected to the Memgraph database. We have a logical database inside Memgraph where lab actually saves the shared stuff. In this sense, it's graph style script. So Alice can save some of her graph style scripts through the lab to Memgraph, and John can see those, and vice versa. So they can actually see the shared graph style scripts and use them in their own workflows. The shared GSS is not the first thing that you can actually collaborate on. The first feature that was released a few versions before is actually sharing queries. So that was the first feature that we enabled in the lab, where different people can share queries between each other and then see all those things together without sending the queries or sending the private information and everything through other mediums. So yeah, and I will show you that that's an enterprise feature, which means even though for a setup of remote storage, you can have community Memgraph or enterprise Memgraph, but you will actually need to provide the actual key, license key, the same license key you have for Memgraph Enterprise, you can provide to the lab through the environment variables to open up the remote storage capability. And yeah, this is how it looks like. I'll also show you later on in the demo. Now, when you want to save your graph style script, you can see the location part, and you will see if you want to save that locally in your browser or you want to upload that to the remote storage, and with an option to share that to your team members. So you can actually store it remotely, but keep it only for yourself, or you can store it there and make it visible to everyone that has access to the same lab. Of course, behind authentication, authorization, and everything that comes with it. And this is, for example, loading the style. So you can load the style that's in your browser, you can load the style from the remote storage and make your visualization same and how other people in your team uses it. As well, in the settings, you can see all the styles in browser ones, remote ones, and then you can move them, copy them, edit them, share them again, and so on. So you have all the capabilities in the settings. Okay, cool. I'm not sure if you know about it, but I think it was a few months ago, Memgraph was released with a real-time schema update. So you can actually configure that with the configuration parameter in Memgraph. It's called schema info enabled. What it does is whenever you add stuff in your Memgraph nodes relationships, the schema is updated real time. So we don't need to check the schema and calculate and get the, I know, top 50% of the nodes to see how many of nodes are there and so on and so on. So we have the schema real time. The schema that's there, it's super detailed. So we have the counts of nodes, and then for each property, how many of those properties are there, how much is it filled or not, because it can have null values in there, and what kind of types are in there, which can be really, really helpful when you are creating Cypher queries and you want to cover different property types. This is really useful if, for example, I know if you have an application, you already know how your model looks like. But if you are creating knowledge graphs from different sources, the actual property types can differ, and the schema can help you out in there. So what we did in lab, we actually integrated with that new schema. So the lab will check if that property is enabled on Memgraph. If it is, the schema is fetched immediately, and you can actually, in the sidebar, you will be able to see different property types, how many of those properties are in there, and so on. If by any sense you don't have that enabled, no worries, you will still see the counts, but you probably won't see the property types in there. So it will actually give you the information it can fetch from the Memgraph without being really too heavy on the actual scan. And I know that especially when you want to get your Memgraph to the highest performance, you can read about it more on our docs. So there is a property called max map count, where you can adjust the memory map areas and how much it can be used by Memgraph. And that's really important if you want to have the maximum performance of Memgraph. And we are seeing that some people are having difficulties, especially with the performance, without knowing that they should set that up on their instance. So what we added, so this is one of the first notices that we will be adding to the lab. It's already there, but we will be adding more in the future. So the lab will now, once you use the lab to connect to Memgraph, it will check if the max map count is set correctly for Memgraph to be at highest performance. And if not, you will see the notification bar, the warning, and a way how you can actually configure that to ensure stability and avoid Memgraph crashes due to the memory issues. So this is the first notice that will be appearing here, but our plan is to add more and more notices to help you out in the optimal Memgraph configuration. And for all of you that have been using highly available Memgraph and Memgraph cluster, right now you probably know that you can use Lab not just to connect to the Memgraph, but you can use Lab to connect to the coordinator. When you connect to the coordinator, you don't have the same stuff that you see when you connect with the Lab to the Memgraph, like you don't see data sets and everything else, because you can pretty much run instance management queries there. So right now what we added is now you will be able to see if you are on the leader or the follower immediately, which can help you out to see where you should run your instance registration queries and all the management of the cluster. And here we are. So live demo. The goal is I will go through these major features. I will show you how it works and how you can actually use them in your everyday workflows. And after that, we'll get back to the Lab 3.0 and what we can expect in the future. So let's get to it. First, I want to show you the dark theme and what you can expect with the dark theme, and especially if you have some difficulties with the system default graph style script. So let's connect to the Memgraph. So I'm right now on the Memgraph itself. I have some data set in there. And let me run the data set. And yeah, I have my data set in here, all good, everything works great. What happens? So I will keep this in here so I can have the actual graph already visible. Let me go to the settings. And I'm not sure if you use layouts, but you have the layout stuff over here, and you can pretty much define and create different layouts that pretty much suits your workflow. So let's change the theme to dark theme. And you can see that like the graph is there, but I don't see any labels. I don't see any other stuff. So why is that? Because by default, the query execution loads the system default. And in this sense, the system default was for the light theme. So if I load the default style again, you can see that it actually loaded the correct dark theme style. You only need to do this once if you change the theme, because the system default pretty much depends if it's dark theme or light theme. And we won't do that automatically because we are not sure if you did any change on your current system default. Because if you go to your styles, you will see the system default over here. You can see the code. And if we change the theme, actually the code changed because it now uses different. And let me load it again, and you can see that the new system default has been loaded. So if you already have some of the graph style script implemented and you change the theme, just make sure to maybe change the colors and everything so you can see them on the dark theme as well. Everything else pretty much stay the same. So we have the graph schema, monitoring, and everything else is what you can play with. And okay, so that's dark theme. You can pick whichever you want. Let's go back and let's talk about the remote storage. So I will now connect with, I have Memgraph Enterprise running in the background with 3 different logical databases. Let me show you that. So I will connect with the admin account, and I will show you what's in there. So I'm with admin account there. I have 3 databases. I have the lab database, Memgraph, and Talks. Talks is pretty much the TED Talks that I will be loading. There, the Memgraph, that's the default database. So let me switch to Talks. I have my data set already loaded there. If I wanna, I can show users. So I have 4 users in here. I have the admin, Alice, John, and Lab. So what I did here, how did I prepare all of that for the remote storage? So let's go to the collection, and let me show you the queries that has been used to create all of these. So we have, first, we created the super admin that has all the privileges and all the fine-tuned privileges on labels and edge types. Then we created the read-write role that can only pretty much do read and writes to the database. It cannot do any database management stuff, and so on. After that, we created users. So admin, which is a super admin, and the admin can see all the databases, all the logical databases in there. We created John. John can only see the talks. So that's our TED Talk database that we have there. We have Alice. Alice also pretty much same with John, can only see the talks database. And we have the lab. So we created the lab account, username lab, password lab. It's read write, and lab uses the lab date. Maybe I should name it differently. Now everything is the lab, but just bear with me. So we have lab username, lab password, and lab database. So our idea is we have a Memgraph database, and one logical database of it, which is called lab, will be used as a remote storage, where lab will save all the sharing stuff that Alice and John will share in between each other. All the other databases are used for different purposes. And that's why we said that we want a lab user only to see lab database. So the lab service cannot see any other database due to the privacy and everything else. And now when you did all of that, what you want to do is when you start your lab instance, you need to define these environment variables. So the enterprise organization name, the enterprise license key, and then where the remote storage is. So the host of the memgraph, the port memgraph, what's the username that should be used, password, and what's the database name. If you are using community memgraph, you probably don't need database name because you cannot use multi-tenancy, but you can use simple authentication. So you might use username, for example, and password. So this is what we created on our lab. These are the environment variables that we created. And when we start the lab will show you the message that it's successfully connected to the actual remote storage. So let's now shift to the John and Alice, and I'll now show you how they can actually interact and share the graph style script. So we have John on the left side, we have Alice on the right side. So John is in blue, Alice is in pink. They are actually seeing the same databases. You can see it's the talks. If they want to switch the database, they can switch the database because they only have access to the database talks. And they have the same number of nodes and edges in there, so they can actually work their way up. So let's see what kind of stuff they can see. So we can see that John has system default style and the custom style it used. Let's see what Alice has. Alice only has the system default. And you can see there are no remote storage, remote graph style scripts shared yet. So let's see how it works. Let's run a query. We have something that Alice, worked on, and Alice wants to, and it uses default graph style script, but Alice can still save this. So Alice can go to save. It can save the style in browser, so only for Alice, only within this browser instance, or Alice can choose and store it to the remote storage. Let's do that. Let's say Alice, remote storage, and Alice can choose if Alice wants to share that or keep it only for herself. Let's do one for herself. And let's change the size to make it 2. Now all the nodes will be super small. And let's save this style also to the remote storage. Alice small, and let's share this one. Save. Okay. So now Alice actually saved 2 styles to the remote storage. You don't need to always save to the remote storage. You can do in browser and save that in your browser. You can save the same style. So let me show you, like right now, Alice has 2 styles in the browser and 2 styles in the remote storage. Cool. So if we go over here and let's see what John sees, John can actually see the shared one from the Alice. So you can see that it's shared. You can see John can see the code, and John can then pretty much save that to his own in-browser style. Or if you don't need to, you can actually use one in your code. I'll now show you that. So John can go here. John can run the query. John has all that. It can go here, load the style, and load the one that Alice shared. And voila, we have those small nodes in here. What John can do, John can then save this style either to his own or save it to remote. And let's say John small doesn't want to share that with anyone, and John can keep that for his own purpose. What's cool is John created some pretty cool style. Let me load it up. So I can also show you some cool tricks that you can use. For example, this is what John created. So John said, like, for every speaker node, please make the size of the node as how many edges are gave from it, and multiply that by 2. Meaning, if the node has 10 gave edges from it, then the size of it will be 20. Also, any node that has the label tag, just see how many outbound and inbound edges are on that node, and then create the size of it accordingly. And then now you can see, like, you can pretty easily see that this speaker, Hans Rosling, is the one that actually gave most talks immediately. So you can help your out with the graph style script, because by visually creating importance within your node, and then you can see like all these tags have different size depending on how many edges are going toward the node or out from it. So what John can do, John can save that to the remote storage and check this one, and then share it with Alice. And now Alice, if Alice wants to load it up, it has the check this one from John. It can load it up and actually work on the same code that John does. So this really pretty much gives you a way for team members to collaborate and share. And if someone is pretty good in graph style script, it can create some graph style script that all the team members in the company can use. What's also cool is whenever John updates the remote storage one, it's updated to any other team member immediately.
Maybe one question, Tony, from my side. In this case, like, what's the benefit of John storing the style to the remote storage for himself instead of in browser? Like, if he's not sharing with the team and saves in the remote storage, what does he get from that?
So yeah, that's a great question. So that's when I always saying in browser, which means Alice will see these two styles only if she uses the same browser, the same session. So if Alice creates new incognito window, or Alice connects from different browser, from different location, Alice won't see these styles because those styles are saved within her browser session. With the remote storage, Alice can connect from a different browser, and Alice will be seeing all these remote storages. I can actually show you that immediately. So right now you see that Alice has Alice small and system style, and it has 4 styles in the remote storage. Let's say Alice is traveling, and she mostly uses her home computer, and she is now on the laptop somewhere. She has a new and she's even using a new browser, and she connects to the VPN. And let's now open this one. Let's connect with Alice over here. So let's new connection. My Memgraph is over here. I don't need database name. Okay, Alice. Now I'm Alice on different laptop or different browser or different browser session. And if I go here, you can see I don't have the same in-browser styles over here. So with the remote style, you're sure that from any place where you connect, if you connect to the same lab instance, you will have those remote styles there.
Yeah, makes sense. So it's not only like a team collaboration stuff, but you also get much more for yourself as well. And now you gave us Alice's password, Tony, be careful.
Yeah. And also, yeah, that's why you can see that some of these things are private or shared. And you can pretty much make them public if you want to share between all the other team members. And I will show you now, like you've seen Alice and John sharing, but what's cool is whoever is the administrator can actually go there. And I'll now show you. So we are on the administrator. We will connect to the lab database. So that's the database that lab uses to store all that. And let's do the query to get all the stuff in there. And right now you can actually see how lab stores all of that. So you can see that we have the John, and John created 2 different styles, and we can see Alice. Alice created also 2 different remote styles. You can see what's in there, what's the code, and everything. So the administrator can actually see everything. And it's also recommended not to interact with this database because it's used by the lab. So you don't have any kind of corrupted data in there. So I'm usually recommending admins to just view the data and see what's going on.
And Toni, how did you decide to use Memgraph for remote storage? I mean, just a funny question, but yeah.
Well, mostly because most people have already Memgraph in there. So, and if you already have a community, you don't need to set up any new database and anything that's going on. Like you are already doing Memgraph stuff. So we did
makes sense.
instead. Yeah. And the shared history is also the other stuff that's, for example, I can share this history and I'll share it. Okay, you can then see that share over here. And what's cool is that's also saved in the lab remote storage. So you can see that the admin actually created a query share in here. So that's how lab actually uses the remote storage. Okay, yeah. So cool. Let's move on. Now I will quickly show you the graph schema, and we are left with the graph chat. So graph schema. I have two memgraphs. So I have a memgraph that's started with real-time schema, and one memgraph that started without it. So let's first see how it works when there is no schema. So let me connect to that memgraph. So we are on the memgraph where real-time schema is not in here. And what does it mean? So let's, oh, I already have a data set, which is cool. Let me generate. And you can see if I go to the actual node, I can see that we don't have any information about the types. So you have the count, you have the fill percentage, you have the number of nodes, but we don't have any type information. And also if we add any new stuff, so I have some collection with some queries in here. Let's run it out. Let's refresh the graph schema. So we have some new points in here. And if I click, you can also see that I don't have any information about the types. So if you can live without it, awesome. If you need that information, then just check, like you have on the docs, you have the stuff about the schema. Let me just make it over here. So you have this configuration parameter. You can read more about how it can impact the performance and what you can use with that, with all of that information. And on the docs, also, you can see how to set up the remote storage for the lab. Let me go back. Let's connect to the database that has graph schema enabled. So let me load the data set. I will load the same data set. Let's load Pandora papers. Okay, cool. And then let's generate graph schema. And over here, you can actually see the types. So all the types that has been used on that property type. Let me just show you and quickly load the collection. So we have some new stuff in here. So let's load these up. And if I generate the schema, what I can see now, like if I open the dog, you can see that the dog age property can be either integer or string, and it's not always present there. You can see that I created a dog without any properties in here. So you can use these stuff, and it can really pretty much help you out with understanding how your graph schema, how your graph model is configured. Okay, cool. I hope you are still with me, and we are on the last part, which is the GraphChat. So let's get to it. So let me just load, let me load that talks, load it up. Awesome. And I will just generate a schema for the TED Talk. So we have a talk, has a rating. It was part of an event, and the speaker gave the talk, and so on, so on. So that's how the graph schema looks like. Before getting to the graph chat, I'll just show you, like, on the settings in the LLM, here is where you can create your LLM connections. I created two, which is the DeepSeek with two different models, and the OpenAI with two different models, GPT-4 and 4.0. What's also cool is you can create how many models you want. Like it's not just limited to the actual model. Like you can create a new model which has conversation limit 10. So, and then you can, oh, this is a model name, and then you can say that it's 10 conversations, for example, here, and it can only do read, it can do read updates and write, let's say. And then you can create that model, and then here, like before in the previous versions of the lab, you can only have one single configuration, one single model, and that's it. Right now, you can have how many different model configurations and then use them in your GraphChat. And when creating new LLM models, it's actually any of these, Oyama, OpenAI, and so on, and you can create the name for your connection if you want to distinguish different accounts. Okay, so let's get to the GraphChat. So let me just show you what I've been showing you on the presentation. So on the left side, we have threads. Let's ask it something so we have something going on. So it's your question, you have the answer, you can see what kind of query it was generated, how many conversations it used. It used 644 tokens. You can see the schema that has been used for this particular query. You can see the general schema and you can regenerate it if you need to. Over here, like you can configure the actual model that you are working with, so you can change the retry limit immediately, for example, and you will see that your model has been changed because you are actually using it right now. Over here, you can quickly switch models if you have many of those. You can see them over here if you want an easier way to switch through your models. And you can even add new providers immediately from this point on. So these are the threads. So if you create a new message, a new thread will be created. And that's how you interact with the actual new interface of GraphChat. And what I've been told, like on the presentation, you can have multiple GraphChats going on. You can talk with different models. This is the reason. Let's see what the DeepSeek chat has to offer, and then you can actually compare and see how different models work, how different models actually answer your questions. And what I also want to show you, you can know which talk is the most rated one. I won't spend too much time on this because you have the community call that was done a month ago, and we were going only through the GraphChat. But right now, you can actually see what's going on in there. You can run that query in, in some new vertical to see what's going on in there. And let me just close this one so we can focus. And regarding the conversations, so you can see that it used one conversation from the conversation history, but I can show you now how it actually works. So we asked what's the most rated one. And now I want to reference to that talk, and I can say how many ratings did that talk have. And now it should be able to reference that we are talking about Asia's rise. And we can check, and yes, so it's using the Asia's rise and seeing how many ratings it did. And what's cool is you can still continue with it. Like, can you tell me more about that talk? And it should still be able to figure out that we are talking about Asia, and it is, and now it figure out everything about it. Actually collected through the graph all the information. You can see the query that it generated, and then figuring out what's going on in there. And we can even continue, list me other talks from that speaker. So it should be able to figure out that we are talking about Asia's rise and the speaker Hans Rosling, and then we will see if this is going well or not. And yeah, so here are some other talks, the best blah, blah, Hans, yeah, you can see that Hans Rosling is in there, and you can also check the query. Let's
Tony, maybe one question from the audience. So, can you do prompt engineering inside GraphChat? That is, what are the debugging capabilities possible now, and what's like planned
yeah,
for the future?
that's a great question, and I will actually answer it in 2 minutes.
Then awesome.
Yeah, so it's part of the future improvements that we will be adding to the GraphChat. So that's a great question, and yes, you will be able to have your insights in how the prompt is generated, and not even that, you will be able to change that. So I will talk more about it in a minute. So I won't spend too much time on this. You can check it out. You can try it out. It will fail. I know. Let's. How? What's what's what is the shortest path between that speaker and any random tag? I This probably won't work. Um, it still has issues with like shortest paths and everything because yeah, you can see now because it's still using some kind of Neo4j syntax, and it's sometimes not able to figure out how to change that to Memgraph, and not able to figure out what kind of query modules it does have. So what's cool is you can actually see how it's trying to figure out the way. So it tried one way, it got the error. It tried the other way, got the same error. It tried different procedure, and then there is no procedure, and it pretty much said, yeah, I can do this. So these kind of steps will help you out to see where it's heading to, and you can help out, and like you can do shortest path by running this kind of queries. Now you can do that stuff, and it will be able to figure its own way out. But it's still not there, meaning especially if you have some specific business need. This is more for high-level questions, but that's the plan that we want to get to. And to get back to the presentation and to get back to the actual question that was asked, like, what's the future of lab? What's next? And there are three directions. So it's the AI, where we want to extract what GraphChat does in the background, so you can customize that. You can customize the prompt. You can customize how it's actually creating the final prompt, what kind of questions, what kind of examples. Because if you are working with PageRank, we want to give you an ability to define how to use PageRank, or even how to use a step that we will prepare for you that has all the details in there explaining to the LLM how the PageRank can be used. So in general, we want to like create that high-level workflow where you can pretty much create your own agent that GraphChat will be working with. Similar to what Ante was presenting a few days ago on the agentic GraphRag. So in order to do so, we'll also do some deeper Memgraph integration. So we'll give you steps, different steps, for example, vector search. So you can utilize the vector search if it suits your needs. It will utilize query modules. If you have custom algorithms, there is no way GraphChat will know how to use your custom algorithm in your query module. And with this customizable workflows, you will be able to say to him, like, this is how you can use it. This is my business case, and it will work from that point on. So in general, we want to make GraphChat not the generic stuff, because it's really hard to make it work for any business use case. We want to make it like in a way where you can take the baseline and then fine-tune the workflow that works best for your use case. Not just that, we want to expand the LLM. That's why we moved the LLM to the settings, because we want to make sure that you can pretty much connect different LLM models to different pieces of your lab infrastructure. So you can use one kind of a model with one kind of knowledge for importing data, one kind of LLM for graph style script, so which can help you out define some good visualizations for your need. We'll also continue with the team sharing features, sharing collections, sharing chats. in general, we want to make your life easier and so you can collaborate easier when using the lab on top of Memgraph. And other stuff that's mostly always there, performance, customization. I know a lot of you has been asking, like, can I create my custom view how lab works when I start it up, like removing some of the data sets, adding my own data sets, removing some part of lab like streams because I'm not using it, or so we want to make sure so you can customize it on your particular need, give more guidance through the lab, especially like how to make your Memgraph more performant, and do some other features like live graph edits and so on. So these are the directions, and this is where the lab will be moving on in the future. Yeah, so thank you very much. This was a demo of the Lab 3.0. Check it out, see how it works, give us your thoughts, and yeah, I hope you like it, and thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Let me just fix the stage. Okay. Thank you for doing the demo. It was really nice seeing that. Although I have tried it already, it's always somehow different when you explain everything that's under the hood. So thank you for that. And you mentioned here having like three different direction. Everything sounds awesome, especially now with the stuff moving in the AI world and like those capabilities that you mentioned in the future. I'm looking forward to it and seeing how AI can help Memgraph users in a lot of different senses. But like when you see those three directions, what do you think like from what you heard from the like product request perspective, like what do you feel like is the most requested thing, or what's currently kind of the thing that you are working on, or that's like I must do this next?
It pretty much it's all three all around. Like when I started today's presentation, I started with the dark theme because everyone was screaming about the dark theme, and so we have people talking about the performance stuff, about making life easier when using some of the pieces there. Also, if there are a lot of team members, they will be vocal about team sharing capabilities because they want to be able to share, and especially in the company, if they have different roles, like if they have analysts, developers that know how to run Cypher queries, and they want to be able to share those things because they want to move faster. But lately, there has been a lot of requests about the AI stuff. So right now, our focus is, I would say, mostly like 60-70% on the AI, and then the rest is on the other two directions.
And repeated feature similar to dark mode, and we saw another one today, is to have like download image from the graph results in lab. Is that coming anytime soon? Tell us more.
It's also interesting, like we already have that, like because it's used when you want to save your graph stats.
I wanted to say that, like you have it.
But it's really about the focus. I'm sure it will be coming
I
down
know.
soon. Yeah, but you
No
can
pressure. Sorry for putting you on the spot here. It's just funny how every day a lot of new feature requests come in. So this one was, yeah, like a dark mode.
yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you, Tony, for doing this presentation. Thank you for showing this to our users and to everyone watching here today. Hopefully, we'll do another one when the new version of Lab is out with new cool features. But yeah, if you're maybe in San Francisco on Monday, February 24th, we are actually holding with Trust Graph in-person event. I'll send you the links in the chat where you can join. So if you're there in the Bay Area, feel free to join. And we have another online event on Thursday, next Thursday, February, I think it's 28th. If I'm not mistaken, we are doing DeepSeek and Memgraph for RAG. So hopefully you'll be able to join. And yeah, it's February 27th. Sorry, I missed the date, but it's next Thursday. So register for the event and see you next week, I guess. And thank you, Tony, once again. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.